In this video, I'll go through how to bring in your survey data, how to control how it's imported, how to control how it's displayed, how to adjust things, control the display, and control how it's modeled, and then we'll set up a nicely formatted output sheet and talk about how we can export that data to another digital format if needed. Through this workflow, I'm going to use some pre-set up system settings. So I've set some of my defaults to streamline the process for me, so each time I open a project, I don't start from scratch. Things are set up to be the way I'd like them to be. We've got a second video that goes through how to set up those default settings. So with that, let's jump into it. We're going to start in open up the Terrain module. We're going to click Insert File. So our data is CSV data. We'll just take a quick peek at it to talk about it. So we've got our point code, coordinates, and point number. So with this CSV data, if I hit open, I'm presented with the import options. Default options are ASCII text, ASCII ladder, and Microsoft Excel. And I've gone through and I've created another IOP format that makes it so I don't have to set my import options every time. And that'll be covered in the second video. So here we are. We've got it assigned what's our X, Y, Z columns, point codes. We've told it that our point codes are formatted as such. So if I have something that's called target, it's going to be a red point with that symbol. If I have something called BB, it's going to be a green break line with that symbol at its points. Over here, I'm going to set my projection. 2053. And we'll hit OK. So our data is brought in. For the most part, things are set up. So our spot shots are those little cross symbols. We've got our tree symbol applied to the trees. Everything's looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that, and we'll make some edits, but how it was brought in, we're content with. The labels, so in here I've set my screen layout. So screen layout, and I've saved my normal so that my 3D view is over here, my plan view is over here, and I have feature name and elevation labels applied to all the features in my model. I'm content with that. Now in this case, I can look around at a glance and things seem to make sense. I'm going to turn off my labels just to avoid a bit of clutter here. So there we can see a little bit better of what's going on. So that was a right-click active window options, and I've turned off labels. We can format our labels, and we do talk about that in the second video as well. And I've got my scale set at 1 to 500, which I'm happy with, but if we wanted to change that, we could. We can have this locked feature on. So right now, if I zoom in and out, the scale remains the same, but we're magnifying what we're working with, which I'm happy with. If I turn that off, as I zoom in and out using the wheelie on my mouse, the scale would be adjusted. So looking at this, I see one thing that I want to change right off the bat, and this break line is crossing over itself. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to click Modify Break at Current Point. We'll come to this end. We'll do the same. There's that. Now let's just do a quick model here. So I'm set my contours to be 5 and 1. We could turn them off if we'd like. We could change the symbology if we'd like. We can include labeling if we like. I'm going to leave this as is for now. And with that, I can see, okay, that looks like a pretty bad point. Doesn't look like what we'd expect. I can right click, and to make it easier to see where you're at in the plan view, we can turn on track mouse. So now I can see, if I hover over that in my plan view, we can see where we're at. Now this bad point, we can handle it a variety of different ways. The easiest one is if it's an actual bad shot and we just don't want it in the model, well, we can select it and hit delete on our keyboard and it disappears. We could also just turn off whether the feature is included in our model or not. So we could do that there. And I'll talk about that with a different example later on. The other thing we could do is we could change the coordinates of it. So I'll talk about it with a feature with multiple points in it here to start with. So this feature, if I wanted to change a single point in it, so an elevation, I could tabularly, I can right click, modify coordinates, and if I'm at that point and I want to change it to another elevation, I absolutely could. Just change it here and hit update and it'll update. And then we'd have to remodel after the change. Now if I wanted to, if this was on a grade and I wanted to shift that whole feature up a certain amount, I could go over by Feature Tools Shift, and that would keep the point geometry relative to each other the same, but it would shift them up to whatever coordinate I'd like. So we could use that there. Now another thing we could do, if this had multiple elevations in it and we wanted to set it all at a single elevation, we could go assign, and we could assign the Z value for that entire feature. Now this point, let's just single point. So if we go with coordinates or shift, they're going to largely do the same thing. This where it's a single point. We'll shift that down. Now in this case, I want to join that in with the rest of my break line, so I'll select that, I'll hold in shift, select that, and I'll click join. And we can remodel. Now, another thing I see here that I don't like is I have some really long, funny looking triangles on the edge of my tin. We can limit our tin surface a couple different ways. So the easiest way to do it is by controlling our maximum side length. So if I set this at 20, I'm just going to turn on my triangle outlines here in my plan view so we can see what's happening. These triangles that make up the tin surface, I've told it that the maximum length of those triangle edges can be is 20 meters. Now in this case, if I want to model a surface from these points, but I don't want to have the funny interpolation along the outside, we can create a tin boundary feature. So we could go over here, create new feature, make it a tin boundary feature, and draw in where we want the boundary to be with our mouse or with our keyboard. A faster way is going to be to go tin operations. So we've got a tin boundary to start with, create tin boundary feature. So that shows us the feature that we're starting with. Now I can right click, edit insert points with mouse, so I can modify that selected feature. With my cursor's pencil, once I'm within the snap tolerance of vertices on it, it changes to the little box. I can click once to unanchor it, click again to anchor it down. Now in this case I'm not going to anchor it down because I want to delete it. So with that vertices unanchored, I'm going to click delete. And we can works to add points as well. So here I'm going to add a point. Since I'm not near vertices, when I'm in the snapping tolerance to add a point, my cursor changes to a pencil with a cross. And it's a single click to add a vertices. It's unanchored to start, and then another click to anchor it down. Excellent. So I'm going to click generate. Now in this case, if I just hit OK, actually before I do hit OK, I want to turn this on to be a tin boundary feature. And since it's on existing points, surveyed points, I'm going to make it modeled. If we want to change the symbology of it, we absolutely can. So let's just change it for the sake of changing it. So there we are. Now if I come over here, and if I don't change this maximum side length, we're getting the same results. That is saying that the maximum edge length can only be 20 meters. But in this case, since we've got a boundary, we'll turn on include all, and there's our surface. So that's looking good. Now it's not ideal, and the reason it's not ideal is these tree features that I brought in when I built my IOP, so that system settings that control how that's brought in, I told it to include the tree features in the model. And that's just a setting. It's one of the drop downs beneath above the symbology and line work, and it's include in model yes or no. So right now our tin is going to those points. It's included in the model. So we could have changed that to a no on the import, or we can do it after the fact. So I can right click, select features, and I can select features in some variety of different ways. In this case I'm going to use by name. So we have our TR. Now I could just highlight those and hit select, and we'd have all our tree features selected. Now instead of doing that, I could go in here. So if it was a really large data set and I didn't want to scroll through and find all those features, I could just type in TR. Asterisk accounts for anything that comes after TR, wildcard character, and there we are. So we've got those selected. Now we're going to turn off modeled in our properties panel. And when we remodel, we don't have tin edges going to those points. Excellent. So at this point, I'm happy with what we have displayed. I'm going to turn off my triangle outlines. Just say add clutter, and we'll show another nice feature in the software. Since we're working with projected data, we can pull in ortho imagery data from WebMap Tile Service. So in this case, I'll just select my boundary, come over here, click Home, click Import. There's our data set that we're dealing with. I'll hit Save. And let's save that right here. And there we are. We've got some ortho imagery in the background. Now, if we're happy with that, and we're ready to make a nice formatted document to present, let's do that. So when we brought this in, having our 3D view and plan view set up the way we'd like, with our labels showing and whatnot, that was controlled in our set by setting our view screen layout and overriding our normal. In this case, I've added in a multiplot that I like to use in that normal. So this is automatically populated with what we'd like. Now, none of this is fixed. We can format our legend. We can move things around. If we wanted to add a profile, for example, of one of our break lines, we can. So I've just selected that here. I'll click New Profile, and so there's our profile. In this case, it's not overly interesting. It's a flat profile, but we can add that into our multiplot, and it's just a matter of going, selecting that, clicking multiplot, new subview, profile, and we can put that anywhere we'd like as well. And we can move these around, etc. And I can move these around tabularly as well with the arrow keys and holding in Shift Control to move my subviews. Now, once I'm ready to plot that, I can click File, print or print preview. If I want to go to PDF, I'm going to use my PDF printer driver, and that's that. Now, if I want to export this data into another digital format, I absolutely can as well, and we can click Save As, and it's just a matter of changing the extension to be whatever you'd like it to be. So DWG, DXF, DGN, shape, land XML, etc. They're all supported formats. All right, and thank you for your time.